Good morning, everybody. Hope you had a good weekend. This is the Monday morning call, and great time for you guys to ask questions, share successes, or ask questions about things that are going less than stellar, and this is the best time to talk about it. So if you've got questions or concerns, please make sure you type those in so that we can address those as we go through the I'll check back with Missy to see if you guys have any comments or questions when we get done with the pointers here. So the first thing I want to talk about today with the pointer is Roger Radcliffe, one of our guys, was nice enough to forward a really nice link to a NBC News short, which I think is about 4 minutes long, and it was talking about advanced medical directives and the reason you need to have those. It was a fantastic little video and really was emotional on how people who do not have their advanced directives, like we help them to get, they don't have those, how it can really affect a family in a very bad way. So we've got the link down here, and then Missy, you said you were also they can either click that on their, if they're on the live call live, they can click that, or and then if they listen to the recorded. So can you kind of go into that, Missy?
Yep, I sure can. So I just posted that link actually in the chat area. So for those of you that are listening to this live, you can click on that. It'll open it up in a separate internet window, and then you could always just bookmark that link to go back later. Otherwise, for the people that will be looking at the replay, I will post this link within the replay section as well, right along with the call.
So it's a really nice little 4-minute video that really can, all of you guys should watch it. And if it's easy for you to show it to the clients, you might even consider having them see it too, because it's very emotional and tells you the importance of what we do every single day for our clients. So any questions on that before we go forward? Okay. So then we also, Missy, wanted to announce that we have a 5Q phone number.
Yep. So we have a specific 5Q phone number for all of you guys at AR. So instead of just calling the main AR phone number or Jason's direct line, you can utilize this 855-587-2537 number, and that will ring to a group of marketers that will be able to handle any questions for our show. If one or the other is not available, then it will ring actually to a third person as well. So you should be able to get through to a live person very, very easily.
That's why we did it, is so that you could find a live person when you needed them quickly. So if you still want to talk to whoever you've been talking to, Joe or Jason there, directly, you can do that. It's just that you have to understand sometimes they're on the phone with one of our other guys, so you might have to wait or leave a message. But this way you get somebody live. So that's why we did that. And then the last thing I want to talk.
I'm sorry. One more thing too. I did post that out on the website underneath the resources. So if you misplace this information or didn't catch it while we were just rattling it off here, just go ahead and go out to our 5Q website and look underneath resources, and that information has been updated.
Okay, and then the last thing here is we've been getting some feedback back from the Social Security workshop. Guys are filling rooms with the Social Security without feeding. We have yet to hear what's happened with them closing deals, obviously, because they've just run them in the last week or two. But they have been very, very successful getting people in without feeding, and they said that the presentation has been extremely well received. So as we work through those and are able to give you more information on how we're able to close business with them, we will let you know. But as far as getting people in, it's been a whopping success, and appointments, it's been a whopping success. But we yet to have data on closing because, again, they've just done them in the last couple of weeks. We've had 5 guys I've talked to. So so far, so good with that. And then I wanted to say, if you do a Social Security workshop, be sure when you do it to call the events, special events section of your newspaper. You could get some advertising for free there because they're always looking for community education events or things that the community could benefit from. And obviously this would qualify as that. So be sure to call the event section of your newspaper, let them know you're doing a Social Security education workshop, and you may be able to get some free advertisement by doing that. So what we want to talk about today is the disclosure meeting, performing the advisor-ectomy. So we're going to do a broad 10,000-foot view today, and then the upcoming weeks we're going to get into more detail on the three most important parts of the advisorectomy. So today I just want to talk in general why it's so important. If you do this correctly, they will hate their advisor at the end of the meeting. Now, will you ever say a bad word, guys? So let me see some answers to this question. Will you ever say a bad word or syllable about their advisor? See some answers to that. Will you see one bad thing about their advisor in the advisorectomy? No. Okay. Exactly, Roger. We don't. Yep, Casey, exactly. Nope, nope, nope. Do we ever say a bad word about their investments? Nope, exactly, Eric. No, we don't. All we are there to do at the advisorectomy is to show them, to disclose what they have, and then let them make the decision about whether they don't like their investments. Let them make the decision about whether they don't like their advisor. That's all we're there to do. We come in with no agenda except to let them know what they have. Okay? So what happens if you do not perform an advisorectomy? What happens if you don't perform an advisorectomy? Well, you're not going to get the deal. That's what's going to happen, because they're going to take their information back to their current guy. Because there are three types of people. There are three types of prospects. One prospect has no money. Do we want them as a client or a prospect? No. The other kind of prospect is a do-it-yourselfer, where they have money but do it themselves. Do we want to make a practice of trying to get those people as all of our as our clients, our primary source of clients? No. So the only people left, if we have people with no money or people with money that do it themselves, the only people we have left is people with money that have advisors. And Eric, you're exactly right. If they have money and have advisors, and we don't perform an advisorectomy, they're just going to take our information back to the current advisor. You're exactly right. So what happens if they hate their situation but are still okay with their guy? What if you convince them that they should hate their current investments and the fact that their beneficiaries are wrong and the fact they don't have all these documents and this, that, and the other thing, the diversification isn't good? What if they hate their situation but they're still okay with their guy? What are they going to do? Going to stay with their guy. Go back to him. Have him fix it. And I know that seems counterintuitive, but that's what they're going to do. Guys, do people like hassles? No. Do people like confrontation? No. What is it to leave their current advisor? It's full of hassles and confrontation. They don't want those things. So what they'll do is just go back to the guy and say, I hate this situation. And what does he say? Oh, I'm sorry. Here, let me fix it for you. And then you're out. And they're in. So what are you going to find out if if you haven't performed an advisorectomy well? When will we find that out? After it's too late, Eric. Exactly right. After it's too late. That's when you're going to find out. If at the end of that second meeting, at the end of the advisorectomy meeting, if they're not livid with their guy, not their situation, but livid with their advisor, saying, I can't believe we let him or her do this to us. Not, I can't believe I'm in these bad things. I can't believe I'm invested in this. That's not good. I can't believe I let him do this to me. That is good. That means they've realized that their guy has character flaws. Okay? And here's the thing. And I did this for 8 years, and virtually every advisor that Jeff and I have trained that have come on in the last decade, this is exactly how they think. This is exactly how they think. They think, hey, if I prove that I'm smarter than their current advisor, obviously they're going to move with me. Because, guys, can you prove that you're smarter than the current advisor? Yeah, you can, can't you? You can prove that you're smarter than their current advisor. And you think, well, and I can prove that I have better solutions than their current advisor. Can you prove that you have better solutions than the current advisor? Absolutely. Easily. And can you prove that the client's current situation is not good? Yeah, you can do that. And so what most typical advisors think, geez, if I can show them that I'm smarter than the current advisor, if I can show them that I have better solutions than their current advisor, and I can show them that their current situation is not good, they're obviously going to move with me. Does that happen, guys? Does that happen? No, it doesn't. Exactly. And here, you know, when guys come onto the system from the general agent population, whenever I ask advisors how good they can close, guess what every advisor tells me they are when it comes to closing clients? What do you think people tell me? The best. We got Eric saying the best. 80%, 80% plus. Casey and Eric, you're right. They're always telling me that they get, you just put me in front of people, and I close 80% of the people. Guys, if that was really the case, how wealthy would we all be? And I'll start quizzing them, saying 80% closing ratio is fantastic. Because, guys, if you had an 80% closing ratio, how would you worry about spending money on marketing then? If you have an 80% closing ratio, should you worry about spending money on marketing? You wouldn't need to worry about it, because the fact is every marketing, even the crappiest of marketing, what if you only got, if you have an 80% closing ratio and you only get in front of 2 people, that means you got how many sales with that? If you have an 80% closing ratio, you get in front of 2 people, that means you're going to close how many of those people? At least. At least 1. That means that, you're going to make $6,000, $7,000, right? So let's think about this. What kind of marketing won't get you in front of at least 2 people? I mean, even the worst, Jeff, you investigate and look at a lot of marketing. Is there any marketing that won't get you in front of at least 2 people, Jeff?
No, everything you do will get you in front of at least 2, 3 people.
Oh, let's go with 3 people. If you've got an 80% closing ratio and you get in front of 3 people, how many are you going to close them, guys? 2, exactly. So now you're up to $12,000 in commission, at least. So really, if you're convinced you had an 80% closing ratio, you should just be throwing money at the wall with marketing. So when I start to talk to these guys, though, and I say, well, it'd be like me playing baseball. Let's say I played Major League Baseball, and I told you I had a batting average of 750. I have a batting average of 750. What would you tell me? If I told you I had a batting average of 750 in the major leagues today, what would you say? Bull crap, right, prove it. So then you go watch me play baseball. And sure enough, the first game I have 4 at-bats. First time, I strike out. Second time, I walk. Third time, I ground out. And the 4th time, I get on a single. Is that 750, guys? Yeah, that's 250. So then you say, Mike, what's the heck? If you said you bat 750, you're only batting 250. And I say, well, wait, hold it. That first pitch, that ump called me out on a bad call, so that one doesn't count. So we have to throw that one out. The third time when I got up and I grounded out, that can't count either. That pitch, they clocked it at 101 miles an hour. Who can hit a 101 mile an hour ball? I was lucky to get anything on that, so we can't really count that one either. So we have to throw those out. Actually, I batted 1,000 because the only hittable pitch I got. So what do you think the point I'm making here, guys? How many of us really have an 80% closing ratio? Because if you had a 80% closing ratio, if you got in front of 3 people, you're closing 2 of them. If you get in front of 2 people, you're closing 1 of them. And you can make a ton of money just doing those kind of things. But instead, in our minds, we start to what? Qualify. Oh, that guy wasn't gettable. Oh, that person didn't have any money. Oh, that person did that or the other thing. You can't do that. The reason we're not getting people, or we're not making the money we want, is because we're not closing. It's not because we're not getting in front of enough people. It's because we're not closing the people once we get in front of them. And the reason we're not closing them once we get in front of them is very easy. And it took me 8 years to learn this. It took my wife, a psychologist, to basically shake me up and make me realize this. Guys, if you have a mistress and a wife and you love both of them, what are you going to do? If you love your wife and your mistress, what are you going to do? You're going to stay with your wife. Why? Too much hassle, too much confrontation to leave her. Okay, what if you only like your wife but love your mistress? What will most people do? What will most guys do? Only like their wife but love their mistress. What will most guys do? They'll stay with their wife, exactly, because it's too much hassle. Got to sell the house, got to divide the assets, got to explain to everybody, got to explain it to the kids, got to set up visitation rights. That's a hassle. Confrontational. They got to confront the kids, they got to confront the wife, they got to confront their friends, their pastor, everything else. They don't want to leave their wife. The only way they'll leave this marriage is if they what? There's only one reason they're going to leave the marriage, which is what? If they don't like their wife. That's how you need to deal with the situation with these people and their current advisor. They're married to him. And if they like you and like him, they're staying with him. The only way they're going to leave him is if they don't like him and like you. But the problem with that is if you try to, and it took me 3 months to figure out how to do this, if you start attacking their guy, what are they going to do? If you start attacking their guy, what are they going to do? They're going to defend him. And when they're defending him, we're not even staying neutral. We're moving backwards, because once they defend him out loud, we've got problems. Because if they defend him out loud, they have to feel like they have to continue to defend him, or they look silly. So they're going to continue to defend him. So we have to figure out a way to have them not like their guys without us attacking them. And that's what the whole advisorectomy, the whole disclosure meeting is about. And what it is not about is making mistakes. So Jeff, could you talk to this on this point about proving that they're making mistakes?
Yeah, the problem is making a mistake is something that's correctable. We can forgive mistakes. So if they thought somebody made a mistake, they're going to go back and ask him to correct the mistake. And if he says he won't, then they'll move on. They'll move away from him. But how often do they go back to their current advisor and ask him to correct mistakes, and he tells them, no, I'm not going to do it? I mean, he always says, no problem, I'll fix those mistakes. And if they're really angry about the mistakes, they'll throw in a little, don't let it happen again, this is your last chance. But for all the reasons Mike said, because it's a hassle and it's a confrontation, their first reaction is to try counseling. Let's just see if he can fix it. Let's just see if he's willing to work with us. Let's just see if these are things that we can get fixed. And if they are, they'll fix them. What you don't want them to do is go back to him. And so we can kind of leverage the fact that it's a hassle and a confrontation by using disclosure. I mean, who wants to go back and tell somebody, you lied to me? I mean, that's a big confrontation. That leads to a big hassle and a big argument. And so if they thought that the problem was him and him not telling them things, they're not going to go back and ask him to start being a better person. It's just too hard to go back and have that conversation with somebody. It's just easier at that point to say, you know what, we're out of here. We're not going to talk to him again. I don't even want to talk to him. If they ever go back and talk to him, possession is 9/10 of the law. If they go back to him to talk to him about anything you talked about, he has a 90% chance of keeping it. So we have to compete on something that's not going to send them running back to him. And that's the problem, is so many times we want to go and attack things that they're going to run back and complain to him about. So it can't be about mistakes. It has to be about disclosure.
And Jeff, you've come into my office many times and said, this guy's going to lose this deal. I just talked to him. And a lot of you guys talk to Jeff because he helps you with the case development. So you call him up afterwards to kind of thank him and say, boy, this deal is in the bag. I just decimated their variable annuity. They are angry. They hate their variable annuity. Do you hear that quite often, Jeff?
Oh, yeah, I hear that a lot.
And what's the problem with that?
Well, the problem is they can go back and tell that guy, I hate this variable annuity, and he can get them out of it. The same way that you can. Yeah. And that's what they're more inclined to do, because if they don't at least try that first, then they have to go ahead and go through the hassle and confrontation of leaving him. And they don't have any reason to leave him yet. They have a reason to be upset. But like I said, they're going to want to try counseling first, and he hasn't given them any indication that counseling won't work.
Yep. And and I've just I've done a lot of tape reviews for first meetings here in the last couple of weeks. And I would tell you, remember what I've said at the first meeting, that at the agreement meeting, that this is not about evaluating the current investments. And I'm starting to listen to tapes where guys are starting to see things wrong with their situation at that first meeting. And they start to say, oh, yeah, well, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and boy, you're going to like what I have to show you here. First of all, we sound like we're selling that way. And second of all, it's just as Jeff said, if you start doing that and start picking at that wound, picking at that advisor, without being able to decimate the advisor, if all you do is show them at that first meeting they've had some things wrong, they're going to, between that first meeting and second meeting, go back to their guy and say, are these things wrong? Now he knows you're in the picture, and you're screwed, because once he knows you're in the picture, you have a 90% chance of losing this deal. So the purpose of the advisorectomy is to be able to systematically have them learn over an hour and a half that their guy has character flaws. That's why we don't attack anything at the first meeting. You do not attack anything at the first meeting, because if you do, they'll go back to their guy and say, what's wrong with this, and he'll try to save it, and then you're out. So the first meeting is simply to set up the advisorectomy where we have a whole hour and a half to systematically move through the process of having them not like their guy. Okay? So so what Jeff's saying is that we need to find not just that they made mistakes, we need to find out that this guy has character flaws, tragic flaws that cannot be fixed. We need them to feel that this guy is incorrigible, is not fixable. Not that their situation is not fixable, not that their investments aren't fixable, their guy is not fixable. Because can investments be fixed? Guys, can investments be fixed? That's what we do. That's what your competitors do. But can a guy with character flaws be fixed? If a guy doesn't care about people, can that be fixed? If a guy steals from people, can that be fixed? No. So that's what we have to prove here. So the first part of the meeting, though, before we start this, remember, I spent 3 months attacking their guy and finding out to defend him. So I figured out I need to figure out a way to lower their resistance before we get to their guy. We need to lower the resistance before we even start talking about their guy and his character flaws. We can imply, but we can't talk about the guy yet. And we want to get to the point where by the time, and I just had a call last week from a guy who had his first successful second meeting, and he said these people were livid. These people were livid at their guy, and they were upset, and the lady was, I mean, the deal is done, and it's a huge case. And he just said, I thought the system was powerful, but I'd never seen it in action before. This thing is kick-ass. These people, I've never seen people so angry and so eager to leave their guy ever I think he's been in the business about 17 years than he had before. And so he did it right. And he said, I didn't attack their guy once. They just slowly discovered. He says, by the time I got to the fees, these people were livid. And he didn't even have to tell them that the fees were a problem, because the guy immediately jumped to the conclusion, that guy's stealing from us. He didn't even say anything, and the client jumped to the conclusion, this guy's stealing from us. And that's what happens when you do it right. And I've told this story many times before, but I want you to understand how it works. If Bob and I, Bob's my best friend, and we both work at the same place, and some guy comes up and says, hey, I saw Bob was stealing $20 from your desk, what's my knee-jerk reaction? Bob's been my best friend for 20 years, and this guy comes up and says, Bob's stealing from me, he's taking $20 from my desk, what's my knee-jerk reaction? To defend. But who am I defending? If I defend, who am I defending? Bob? Who am I defending? Somebody said yes. Am I really defending Bob, guys? Who am I really defending? Think about this. Myself, yourself, exactly. I'm defending myself. That's who I'm defending. Because if Bob's my best friend for 20 years and he's stealing from me, what does that make me look like? A complete blithering idiot. So I'm defending myself. But what if they did this instead? What if they walked up to me and said, hey, Mike, I just thought you should know why you're working 70-hour weeks. Bob, about 3 months ago, went to the boss and said that he couldn't work on your project anymore because he had too much on his plate. And now he didn't know the boss wasn't going to replace him, but that's why, but when he left, the boss didn't replace him. That's why you're working 70-hour weeks. So now, am I going to divorce Bob over that? Will I divorce Bob over that? Or will I just be a little irritated and say, well, thanks a lot, Bob. Thanks for causing me to work, you owe me a case of a beer. You owe me a case of beer. That's all I'm going to. Am I going to divorce him over that? No, I'm just getting a little disappointed that he didn't tell me or try to fix it or whatever when he saw me working 7 weeks. But I'm not going to divorce him as a friend. I'd just be a little disappointed in him. And then they said, well, there's another thing. I said, what's that? And they said, well, remember last Friday when you had to work on your daughter's sweet 16th birthday? Yeah. Well, I thought you should know the reason that happened. See, Bob had met a gal the night before, that Thursday night, and took her home and wanted to spend the next day in bed with her, so he called up sick. And when the the boss said, hey, I need you to come in because if you don't come in, Mike's going to have to come in. And he goes, well, then call Mike. And he goes, well, don't you remember Mike's daughter's 16th birthday? He took this off a year ago to make sure he didn't miss this. Are you sure you can't come in? And Bob says, well, I'm still sick. And he said, you sure? Because Mike's going to have to come in. This is really important to him. And Bob said, them's the breaks. I'm too sick to come in. Now what am I thinking about Bob? And then they take it one next step. They say, hey, take a look at this security tape. And they don't say a single word. But there Bob is taking $20 out of my desk. What do I know about Bob? Is he borrowing it from me? Is he planning on replacing it later? No. What do I know about Bob at that point? Without them saying a single word, just by showing me the videotape, what do they know? He's a thief. Exactly right, Bill. He's a thief. And see, that's what happened with this gentleman I talked to last week. He said he'd set the stage so well that by the time he got to the fees they were paying, he was just showing them the security tape. And he didn't have to say a word, and the people immediately jumped to the conclusion that he was a thief because he set it up properly. And the first part of setting it up is making sure we lower their resistance when they come in. Because do they have high resistance when they come in? Absolutely they do. So we have to lower the resistance, and we have to be ready to get on their side. What have I said over and over and over the last few months about the most important skill you need to succeed or to double your business or to triple your business or make it to $1 million? It's getting on their side. Exactly, Eric Gotts. And the reason being is this, is we know as we start to pick away at their advisor, is there a likelihood they're going to try to defend him? Is there a likelihood they're going to try to push us back? Is there a likelihood they're going to get defensive? Yes. And so we immediately have to recognize that, hey, we're not getting on their side. And I think out of the 5 tapes I reviewed last week, all of them, I didn't get through more than 3 minutes before we found at least 5 ways the advisor was not getting on their side. So these 5 guys that I did tape reviews for, they immediately recognized that, holy cow, I had no clue. Do you think they knew that in 3 minutes they were not getting on the guy's side 5 times in 3 minutes? Do you think they had any clue? Because I allowed them to listen to the tapes through, first of all, the first 3 minutes. And so how do you think they did? And you did. And they all said, well, I think I have room for improvement, but I think I did okay. And I said, well, how many times did you not get on their side? And they were like, I don't think that I did get on their side. And guys, this is typical. This is me too. For 8 years, I never thought that I was not getting on people's side or arguing with people. And then when we listened to the tape, not one of them were we able to go 3 minutes, more than 3 minutes, without 5 times that they started to argue with their clients. But were they arguing like, yelling at them and jumping at them? And no. They were little tiny things. But 5 little tiny things start to add up to what? What do you think 5 tiny little arguments or disagreements start to add up to, guys? One big thing, Casey, you're exactly right. One big thing. And they don't, it's like at the end they say, I don't know why I don't want to work with Mike. I just felt, they're having this conversation in the car. I don't know what it is about Mike. I just feel, I don't know. I don't think things clicked. Or do they say, he wasn't getting on my side. He's arguing with me. They don't even realize, just like you don't even realize that you were arguing with them because they're so tiny, but they add up to the point where they don't like you and they don't know why they don't like you. And many times you find out that ends up in an argument with them because they get to a point where you've disagreed with them so many times they start to push back, and we've seen this in some of the other tapes we've reviewed. So we have to lower the resistance, and then we constantly have to be on the lookout to get on their side. So because here's the thing. We're going to show them that they chose the wrong guy, that this guy's been taking advantage of them. We're about to have them discover that this guy has been screwing them, and that is a direct affront to their ability to make good choices. So we have to be extremely careful on how we do this. So we have to constantly be prepared to get on their side about the littlest of things. So at the beginning, the first 40 minutes of the meeting, we spend all 40 minutes trying to break down that resistance wall. How do we do that, guys? What do we do in the first 40 minutes to break down that resistance? What do we do that first 40 minutes to break down that the resistance? That non-financial issues, Eric, exactly right. We talk about non-financial issues. The Survivor's Guide. What kind of professional do we look like when we're talking about the Survivor's Guide? Oh, here we have a question. Mike, is there a way to listen to one of those tapes without compromising the advisor? Yeah, well, we do that on, Dale, we do that on a regular basis, so we will absolutely be doing those things. So Eric says, yes, you're a funeral director. So the first thing we talk about is Survivor's Guide, we sound like a funeral director, a professional that deals with death and the problems death entails. So first time they talk about us, they think we're coming in, they think we're going to talk about money. But instead, we talk about Survivor's Guide. We sound like a professional funeral director. And then we talk about medical opportunity. Now, who do we sound like? Doctor, exactly. We sound like a medical professional. Then we talk about quality of life director, which, again, we still sound like a medical professional. Then we talk about wills and trusts. Now, what do we sound like? Attorney. And then we talk about ID theft. We sound like a security professional. And then we talk about umbrella liability insurance. We sound like a property casualty. So what have we not talked about in 40 minutes, guys? What have we not mentioned? Money. Why do we not want to talk about money for the first 40 minutes? Because if we start talking about money too quickly, they think the only reason we're making these points that we're about to make is why. The only reason we're going to make all these points we're going to make is why. That's right, because we're going to show them that all, yeah, Eric, we're exactly right. So all we're going to show them is that, yes, all we care about is the money. And if all we care about is the money, how much are they going to be defending themselves? Totally. So what we're going to do is we're showing them, hey, we're just here to help. We're going to talk about all these other things that have nothing to do with money because I care about you and your family in total, not just about your money. So by the time we get to the money, they're thinking, oh, this is just another way that he's being a consultant to us, because we've been a consultant about survivor issues, we've been a consultant about medical issues, a consultant about legal issues, a consultant about security issues, and by the time we get to the money, they're like, oh, he's just giving us more consultation on the money issues. He's not trying to sell us, he's just being helpful in the money issues as well. Now, the umbrella liability is where we break and go from non-financial issues to financial issues. So, and how we do that is I sell the property, I sell the umbrella liability insurance super hard. I want them totally convinced that I'm going to try to sell them umbrella liability insurance. Why do I want them to be totally convinced I'm going to sell them umbrella liability insurance, guys? I mean, I sell this hard, hard, hard. Why do I want them to be convinced that I'm going to sell them umbrella liability insurance? Because at the end, when they're absolutely convinced I'm going to sell them, redirect their thinking exactly right. So they think, oh, here it comes. That's exactly right. And so when I finally say, oh, you should need to go back to your property casualty agent to get this, they're like, oh, he's not telling us that either. This guy, 40 minutes and he hasn't even told us anything yet. And then I misjudged him. I thought he was trying to sell me here. And then all he did there was refer me back to my property casualty. Man, he's quit misjudging him. See, they have this mentality that if they misjudge you, just like you, if you misjudge somebody, how much leeway do you give them going forward? Tons. And you're not likely to jump to that same conclusion again. So what I've done is I've had them rule me as a salesperson, and then when I refer that thing back to their current guy, they're like, oh, he's not a salesperson. He's just trying to help me. Look, he's helped me with all these other things, and then he's helped me with this and sending me back to my current property casualty agent. He's just trying to help me. So that's what we're doing there. We're trying to get them to misjudge us as a salesperson and then say, oh, he's not a salesperson. He's been doing nothing but helping. Stop it, stop it, stop it. I just need to quit prejudging this guy. That's what the kind of conversation we want going on in their head. Okay? Now, during the non-financial, what we want to do is make sure that with each of the financial, non-financial things that, number one, that they see that they want these things, but is that good enough? We're going to show them the benefits of having these things. But that's not good enough. They need to need these things. And the only way they're going to get them to need this is to show them the consequences of it. So what we find with some of the guys is when they go through the non-financial stuff, they just give an outline of how that thing works. No, you have to get them emotionally involved. That if they don't have this particular thing, if they don't have the survivor's guide, you could throw their whole family into turmoil and get family members to the point where they'll never talk to each other again for the rest of their lives. That's what you have to have them realize. They need to understand the consequences. With the power of attorney, you need to have them realize that that their spouse may not be able to get money when they need it most. In the most difficult of circumstances, they may not be able to get their money. And I'll just put an aside here. I had actually 2 calls last week from guys that said, that power of attorney thing, I kind of thought it was a little bit bogus, Mike. And, you say that every power of attorney is wrong, and And, you know, and I'm taking you at your word, but I did have this little thing in the back of my mind thinking that power of attorney wasn't that big a deal. And two guys last week had that conversation with me and say, and then I had, one was actually a family situation, and one was a client situation where they tried to use a power of attorney, and guess what they found out? They tried to use a power of attorney, and guess what they found out? It was rejected. It didn't work. So when we tell you that every power of attorney is wrong, that's because it is wrong. And these guys now are true believers, but guys, we've been doing this for 10 years. Sometimes you just have to take us at our words that we know these things. But it's obviously very powerful when you're able to experience those things for yourself. So, do you get this? With the non-financial things, not just how good they are, but how bad these people's lives would be without these things. If you do not hear them say, can I have that? Are you going to give that to me? Can I have that? If you don't hear that, that means what? If they're not asking you, can I have that thing? Can I get that thing? Then you know what? What do you know? You screwed it up. You got to go circle back and get them involved emotionally. Because if they're not asking for that thing, then that means they don't need that thing. They're just saying, oh yeah, good idea. That's not good enough with this, okay? Then we're going to start building the case. After we get the umbrella liability insurance, we're going to start building the case with the financial issues. So what we're going to do is identify a problem, but we don't tell them what the problem is. We identify that their problem exists. Why don't you want to tell them what the problem is, guys? You know, your power of attorney, it needs to be updated because it hasn't been updated in the last 2 years, and you know, your gifting clause, blah, blah. Why do you not tell them what the problem is, guys? Yeah, because then they go back and fix it themselves. Exactly, Eric. Yeah, they go back to their old guy and fix it. You have no leverage. So you tell them they have a problem, and you have them tell you the consequences of the problem. You tell them they have a problem, then have them tell you the consequences of the problem, but you do not give them the solutions. But advisors love to give the solutions. They love to give the solutions. Why? Because, again, as we talked about at the beginning of this call, they think if I can show the client I'm smart, if I can show him that I can fix his problems, they're going to work with me. No, no, no. And then you see the most important thing down there is the client has to discover the motive this thing was missed. They have to discover the motive that why this thing was missed. What are the possible motives? Well, one is that they didn't know. And you know, if the guy didn't know, is that a problem, guys? Yeah. Is it a bad problem? Not really, but here's the thing. This is the least that you can prove. I mean, guys, first of all, is it pretty easy to prove that their guy didn't know something? How easy is it to show their guy didn't know something? Yeah, it's very easy to show he didn't know something. So even if you can only do this, and anybody should be able to do this, any advisor without any practice or training from Jeff or myself should be able to have the people come to the conclusion he didn't know these things. So think about this. If he didn't know one thing, could they forgive him? Yeah. If he didn't know two things, could they forgive him? Yeah. But by the time we get to number 18 or 19, what do they start to think? If he didn't know these things, isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting that every time he didn't know something, it put us in a worse position and him in a better position. So even if you were only able to have them admit that he may have not have known these things, after the 17th or 18th thing where they say, all 18 things put him in a better position and me in a worse position, what do they eventually come to their own conclusion about? That he didn't know these things? Is it possible for him not to know 18 things that put them in a worse position and him in a better position? Does that start to be a little, yeah, it's not a coincidence, Rick. You're exactly right. That's beyond coincidence. So even if you could do didn't know, that would be okay, but we don't. That's not the strongest thing that you can do. Didn't care is better. Because if he didn't care 18 different times, they put him in a better position and them in a worse position. Now are they getting a little bit more angry? And the best thing is he did it on purpose. So which is better for the client and which is worse for the client? So which one of these is better for the client? That he didn't know, didn't care, did it on purpose? Does it really matter if he didn't know, didn't care, or did it on purpose? None of them are good for the client, is it? But if you see how we've set up the whole meeting, remember when I went through Bob, my best friend? Did I attack him? Did I try to say, he took my money on purpose, or did they try to go there first? No. They said what? Hey, you know, I thought you should know why he's working 70-hour weeks, you know, and he didn't know the boss wasn't going to replace you. but I'm still a little disappointed in the guy, but I didn't divorce my guy. But it starts to make me think, what of my friend? That maybe he's not quite the great friend I thought that he was. I don't divorce him over it, but do I start to think, well, that wasn't really something a really good friend would do? Don't I start to think that? See, what I'm doing is softening them up. Because they think, guys, how many of these people think their guys walk on water when they first come to see you? They love their guy when they first come to see you. So you have to slowly start to soften them up. You can't go from loving to hating immediately, can you? And that's what we're doing here. Is that with the didn't know, we're starting to soften them up a bit, and then we get to the didn't care. He's getting a little softer, and by the time we get to did it on purpose, he's done. Okay? So we start with didn't know. And he might not have known because he didn't understand something, or he didn't know a form existed, or he didn't know a certain type of technique. And it works for all of these things. Now, for those of you that have not had this conversation, of all the things that we talk about at the disclosure meeting, if you just do these three things perfectly, your meeting will go great. If you just do these 3 things, even though we have 21 things there, these 3 things done perfectly, your meeting will go great. And how they're made up here is power of attorney. We basically use don't know. He didn't know this. And then the titling and beneficiaries. Actually, this should be beneficiaries. We need to get that changed, Tricia, when we can. The beneficiaries is I don't care. And the fees are he did it on purpose. But here's what you need to know. If I just used didn't know about power of attorney, didn't know about titling beneficiaries, and didn't know about fees, it would still work because we just talked about it. It's not a coincidence if all these things were not disclosed to them, even if, and all of them put the client in a worse position and the guy in a better position, they're going to come to their own conclusion. This is not a coincidence. So you can actually use didn't know for all of them, but we don't, if you do it perfectly, you don't want to do that. You're going to use didn't know for the first ones. He didn't know about the survivor's guide. He didn't know about the medical power of attorney. He didn't know about the powers of attorney. So we use it just for the power of attorney when you do it really well. Any questions on that, guys, or am I talking Greek? Or Jeff, can you hop in? Can you make things clear about what I've just been talking about the last 5 minutes?
Well, no, I think that's exactly right. You know, they're going to leave. If it's 18 things they didn't know about, they're still going to leave. It can't be a coincidence that they put him in a better position. And like Mike said, didn't care is even better, and did it on purpose is the very, very best. But either way, all those things, the cumulative effect is they're going to leave. Now, the great thing is you don't have to go. We give you 17, 18, 19 things. The great thing is you don't have to go 17 for 17 to get a sale. You don't have to go 14 for 17 to get a sale. I mean, the reality is if you do these 3 things really well, you only need to go 3 for 17 to get a sale. So don't feel like you have to be perfect. Be good, be really good at these 3 things, and then just know where you're going and what the purpose is of the others, and you'll have a great meeting.
Exactly. So didn't know is the least effective one, and we start with that on purpose. Then we get to didn't care, and basically didn't care is time is money. If I don't make money doing it, I won't bother doing it. And you could use that, again, for all of these. Power of attorney, titling and beneficiaries, and fees. You could use all of for all of these, but we don't. If you do the meeting perfectly, again, we use don't know for power of attorney and a lot of the non-financial things. We use didn't care for titling and beneficiaries. He didn't care about these things. That's why he didn't do it. He made no money doing it, so why bother with it? So what do they start to think about their guys? And then fees, again, you could use didn't care about the fees too, because you didn't research it, but we actually get to the more precise, did it on purpose when we get to the fees. He had a vested interest in not getting it right. He made more money. And there is a way for me to show you how he would make more money if he didn't have power of attorney. There's a way for me to show that he'd make more money on every single thing in that list. Now, we don't do it again because that's going at him too quickly. It's like Jeff has a great, uses the great analogy of the frog in boiling water, where if you just throw the frog in the cold water and turn up the heat, they never know what's happening until he's boiled. And that's what we're doing here. That's why we start out with the didn't know, then move to the didn't care, and finally get it to did it on purpose. Because if we started going right away for the did it on purpose, they're going to fight us a lot more than if we just kind of gradually move into that conversation. Does that make sense to everybody? So the power of attorney, again, we use didn't know. Titling, we use didn't care. Fees, that's when we get to he did it on purpose. And if you do these 2 right, as Jeff was pointing out, by the time you get to fees, you don't even have to say he did it on purpose. Guess what conclusion they jump to themselves? that SOB is stealing from us. That's when you know you've mastered the advisorectomy, when you get that kind of reaction. And Jeff, how many times have we heard that reaction in the last 10 years from guys that didn't necessarily get it perfect, but like you said, did 3 out of 17 right?
Yeah, I mean, the meetings go just like this if you do it right. And rely on the software. Rely on the proposal. The thing about disclosure is it goes easier if you bring it up lots of times and you go slowly. And it's ordered in the disclosure, in the proposal, to bring it up lots of times. Gives you an excuse to bring it up lots of times, and it won't let you go too fast. So just use the software.
So the advisorectomy formula that you're going to find that we use with every single one of these things is the first thing we do is we have them describe the purpose of the product or technique and tell you how great it is. So if it's a power of attorney, I have them tell us how great a power of attorney is. If it's fees, I have them tell us how great having low fees are. If it's beneficiaries, I have them tell us how great having beneficiaries are. If whatever we're talking about, if it's diversification, I have them tell us how great diversification is. I have them tell me over and over and over in their own words how great that thing is. Why do I do that, guys? Because if they tell me over and over and over how great that thing is, can they back down from that then? No. Once they've said it not once but 5 or 6 or 7 times, they can't say, that's not really that important to me. They can't say that at that point. They've admitted out loud several times that that thing's really important to us. And once they do that, then I say, well, that's what concerns me. And then you show them that the problem exists with their current situation and the consequences. Not just the problem exists, you have to tell them the consequences to them and their family of what that problem will do. Again, do we tell them what the problem is, or just that a problem exists? Just that a problem exists. And then we have them tell us the consequences of that problem existing. And then if we stop there, Jeff, and do nothing else, what's going to happen?
If all we did was tell them that they have a problem, they go back to their current advisor.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of you guys do. They say, man, I nailed it. They understand that they were disinheriting their grandchildren. They understand that they're paying all these too many fees. They understand this guy's not didn't tell them this and didn't tell them that, and I nailed it. Guys, if that's all they understand, you haven't nailed it. They're going to go back to their guy and say, I have all these problems, fix it. And he's going to say, I'm awfully sorry about that. Here, let me fix them for you. And you're out then. You're out. You can't stop here. And that's where everybody wants to stop. I do not know why everybody wants to stop here. You can't. You have to get to what? The motive. Why did he do this? Now, do we tell him why he did it? No. They have to tell us why he did it. We walk them through a conversation where they tell us why he did these things. When they do that, then, when they've said it out loud, that he did this because he didn't know, he did this because he didn't care, he did this because he made more money by not telling us. Like Jeff said, these people don't want hassle and don't want confrontation. So the last thing they want to do, when they figured out this guy's stealing from you, most guys do not want to go back and even talk to that guy at that point. They just want this awful situation over with. They do not go back to their guy once they know the motive, because you don't want that guy back in the picture. So that's an overview of the advisorectomy. Do we have any questions or comments or concerns for those of you that have done an advisorectomy and it didn't work well, or have not done one and you're still trying to grab an idea about exactly how it works? So any questions on this or comments? I'm not seeing anything.
Nothing's showing up here.
Excellent. Okay, then hopefully you have a good overview of this, and then we'll start breaking down those 3 things: the power of attorney, the beneficiaries, and the fees here over the next 3 weeks. So I appreciate you guys being on the call. I hope you have a fantastic week, and we will talk to you very soon. Thanks, guys.